principal balance on each system for outstanding debt. What we don't want to do is have the potential for customers double paying. For example, paying for the connection fee for the capital and then also paying in their rates the debt associated with the debt service for that capital.
We wouldn't have done that.
Well, right, and that's the purpose for this adjustment. So that's one more adjustment that we've got in the calculation. So ultimately, we're down to a little over $19 million in recoverable costs. So our cost per, what we're ultimately trying to get to is a cost per ERC, which is equivalent residential connection. Sorry. And here again, kind of a visual of how that works. You saw that we've got the net cost broken out by utility. And then we just kind of do the math from there. We divide the cost by the existing and planned future ERCs. So basically your total build out equivalent residential connections. They're going to be different for each system. Not every water customer is a sewer customer is an irrigation. So that's why, here again, why we're keeping those separate. And so that equals our cost or our fee per ERC for each. And moving forward, this is what that math looks like. We've got our costs by system, our ERCs existing and future build out by system, and then our costs per ERC by system. You can see next to the last line, we've got a rounding adjustment. What we do there is just rounding those calculation numbers down because we don't want anybody to accuse us of over recovery. So it's just kind of a, I don't know, just another legal insulation, if you will.
Where'd you get the number of additional ERCs to build in?
That was actually a lot of internal work. Mr. Tinkle helped with that. Leslie helped with that, and so it was based on the planned development and
What they
things are
related to developments,
currently relatively known.
developers to give us what their planned usage is and did the projections. And Dave Caldwell gave us all the Lennar WCI territories yet to be built out, gave us the number of ERCs, so that's how we did it. The only thing, well, we did a little bit different. We had the school in it until we had to
Right,
take the
and
school
then
out.
that got backed up.
We got
Right.
I
back-
noticed
back it up.
irrigation, it has a number 10 fewer than the water and wastewater. That's not an error, I
No,
presume.
I forget what the answer was on that, but there was a reason for the 10.
I think that might have been something to do with the meter size versus customer
I think
count
that's
thing,
exactly what it was.
or versus unit count.
I'm not trying to pick on you, I just wanted to make sure that you knew.
That's what it
that-
was. Yeah.
What was it?
His meter count.
And now-
I presume there's an explanation for meter count, additional ERCs, but I don't want to get into that.
Well, there was one of the new planned new customers that was going to be a master meter with 10 units behind it, but they were going to be charged by the size of the meter rather than the number of units. There might have been more units than that, but it offset to 10. And I can't remember exactly what it was,
Which
but
one it was, but I remember that issue coming up.
and that might be one of those that if that changes and that changes the count, it's not going to change
It
the
falls
math.
within the limit of the 3 you deducted.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
What's that?
It falls within the limit of the 3 we deducted to round off.
Right. So,
So what that total, 2,500 bucks or something like that?
oh yeah, we're getting there. But-
Next page.
So here's your existing fees per ERC, the proposed, you can see the water is going to go down a little bit. Wastewater is going to go up a little bit, irrigation is going to go up the most. So combined fee from just under 1,800 to 2,560.
Yeah, it's not significant.
So those 1,800 ERCs times 3/4 of $1,000 gonna generate a lot of money.
We need to have a great big, in black letters, residents do not pay this, right?
Well, and that's something from an education standpoint that they need to know.
Existing
Yes, you're exactly right.
Existing
It's
residents.
existing residents.
Existing residents,
do
they benefit
the
from
house.
this increase, they don't pay it, yes.
New construction.
New construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, overall structurally, this is what it would look like by meter size. This would be the larger meters are your commercial connections, and then multifamily would be that first number times the number of units.
What's the largest meter size that we have? Do we have 8 inches?
I think you have some 8-inch irrigation.
1 or 2 inches, 8 and 6.
Yeah, I don't think you've got any 8-inch commercial customers, if I remember correctly.
That's not me, don't look at me.
Not me. All right, well, with that, I'll open it up to any questions or thoughts.
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment, one of the older rate cases that I was looking at, a lot of those connection fees are based on what you're gonna spend for your capital and invest it, and the rate case said we're not making any changes to the connection fees because Gateway doesn't have a capital improvement plan, so we're not gonna do anything. So,
We do now.
well, but that, historically, that was part of that, they said, hey, there's no capital plan to spend money on, so why would we change your connection fee to cover these new capital costs?
I'd like to thank Daryl and Chuck for one heck of a job of putting this together.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
Far more inclusive of what needed to be talked about and done compared to what we did in 2011.
And Tony, what do we need to do now? Do we need to formalize the public hearing?
I think just set the public hearing date, February 21st, and we'll work with the notices and provide the necessary materials and
Like
make
notices,
the availability. That'll be a staff administrator function. And once you set the public hearing for February 21st.
And will both of these be at that public
I
hearing?
think that's what the schedule is. Again, the effective date of
I think so.
the connection fee increases as at a later date.
Correct.
Right.
Madam
And the
Chairman.
notice will indicate that, we also have to send notices out to utility bills. There's a separate, the legislature in their infinite wisdom has scattered the notice provisions into various little nooks and crannies of those statutes.
Are you going to incorporate in the notice?
Right? One.
Are you going to incorporate in the
Yeah.
notice any of, we talked that one.
That's why I let
one
you
sheet
handle
was
that.
real good.
Yeah.
Are you
There's
going
2
to
sheets,
incorporate
actually.
those, 2 sheets, I
2
think,
sheets.
would be really good in that notice.
Yeah,
Yes.
Leslie's
Front
been
and back.
working very hard on putting something together and compiling the most important information out of that, and it'll be going out on
And,
the.
and the bottom of it has her phone number.
It will next week.
Well, I
Mr.
think,
Guy,
the
you have
attorney
a
Tallahassee is
question?
preparing the notice and they'll be reviewing it.
I don't
Yeah,
have,
I got the
I don't have the,
advertisement and the resolution draft from him, we'll get it to you.
I don't have the connection fee stuff in my booklet, and I'm just going by my memory of what I just saw. But that adds up to about $4.4 million of income.
I actually didn't do that
That's
math.
25, 60,
25, 60,
Times the-
1,700.
You talking about the connection fee also?
Just the connection
Keep,
fee.
that's over a 10-year period.
Okay,
And
but,
it's assuming no pre-purchase or pre-buy.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Assuming no pre-purchase.
No pre-purchase because the 90-day period gives
Right.
people an opportunity
True.
to come in and prepay and buy them now.
Okay, well, it's just
That'll just help our cash flow.
4 million, and 4 million and a half or something like that. That's not, to me at least, that's not small potatoes. That's something that we
Significant.
need to
Uh,
keep in our head.
But keep in mind, it isn't, but when you look at our CIP,
Your CIP is almost
10.8
11
million
million,
is
yeah.
small potatoes.
I mean, but it's still, the purpose of this is to help.
Yes, offset.
I mean, it's not gonna cover everything, but
That's a nice number.
it'll help, yes.
Well, that's one of the things that people have to understand on that non-recoverable.
Right.
We have a ton of facilities, your water lines, your sewer lines, your irrigation lines that were put in by the developer that are in that non-recoverable that we're relying on, that are approaching 30 and some in excess of 30 years of age, that Chuck and Chris came up with, and I totally agree with, that 15%. We gotta rely on that, bailing our backsides out going forward to start offsetting the cost of these things that are O&M related, use related, that we can't pass on in the way of a capital fee to somebody else. And that was the biggest burn that we've had over the last umpteen years. That pool of money that we should have been collecting we've never collected.
Right.
And now we've got an answer to that, and I think with what you said earlier, of 2-3% increase every year only helps give us a little buffer in case something happens.
And Leslie, he said that you were working on the notification. Did you understand which 2 pages it was of the?
Yes.
That we
Yeah.
thought
I already
made the
had the
most
one,
sense? Okay,
so I'll just incorporate the second page.
thank you.
I would make the motion that we present these for public hearing February 21st.
Time?
In place, I guess the question is, do you think there'll be a large crowd?
I'd say we just do it here.
I'd say
Yeah.
do it here and
Okay.
set it for 5:30 or 6 or something like that.
How about 5:30?
5:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or soon thereafter, it can be heard.
Because that'll be a regular board meeting, so.
Yeah, yeah.
at
We
5:30.
can adjust it, so.
All right, I'll
I
second.
make the motion to 5:30.
I'll say.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Gotcha.
Thank you very much.
Very good work, thank you.
If any questions come up, and, between now and then, let Chris know. He knows how to get in touch with me.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great night.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, with that, I'm going to move to Pelican Preserve's Downspout Initiative.
I don't see anybody here from Pelican. I can handle this. This is just a continuation of their downspout installation in the different communities. It's another 200 and some thousand dollars that they'll be spending doing that work. And PPAC approved it to 220,000 at their meeting, even though the contract's totaled 222,000. So I'm sure we'll make some adjustment, or they'll knock $2,000 off the contract price.
It'll be netted out at the end. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is the downspouts in the other areas, are they underway?
I believe they've started, and I just finished putting a letter together to send over to WCI to ask them about that.
Is WCI facilitating the work, or do we go out, get someone else?
WCI is doing the work where they're doing the new construction. The project that we just talked about is the one that Copeland's been working on
Okay.
probably the last 2 years in Pelican.
Okay, all right, that's what I needed.
And I'll also take the next item, and I'll start by basically saying the contractor has gotten the permit for the soccer complex to do over there. He's still going back and forth with the pool, and all has to do with ADA. And even though our ADA bathrooms away from the main building are all compliant, we can work on them, the main building isn't. So even though we have ADA compliant bathrooms in a secondary building, the ones in the primary building aren't. And they're going back and forth whether they're gonna make us spend 20% of the total contract amount on trying to upgrade the current ADA on the main pool.
And let's be clear,
They do.
when we're talking about main building versus secondary, we're talking about, what is it?
50 feet to
50
walk
feet?
across the other
One
bathroom.
side of the pool.
Within
other.
the same
Yeah.
complex,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
other side,
so-
side of the pool.
Yeah, and this has been going on for 2 months, and hopefully it will all get resolved,
Wow.
and we can get the permit issued. But-
Underline, hopefully.
Yeah, and again, that's when you start getting involved with retrofitting and doing work and something.
we don't
that
have the
isn't-
volume to facilitate that kind of stuff.
But basically, what I did is I had a change order here that really accounted for what we were gonna do over at the soccer complex. Adding the stainless steel counters and the gutters over there and some soffit at the soccer complex at the pool. And the big thing was the $8,000, and that was for the soccer complex to have the sensor controlled toilets there.
Yeah.
And that was not in the original, and I know several of the board members, and I thought it was a great idea, not so much at the swimming pool, but at the soccer park. So,
Kids.
and that'll still leave us some additional money from the budgeted funds, a little bit of a pad in there.
So you need approval for this change order?
Yes,
These are within the budget.
yes, sir.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
I need an explanation here. I thought I had it, but it doesn't look like I understand it. there's about $20,000 in that first group of things, stainless steel counters, gutters, da-da-da-da, that are all at the soccer complex. And then this second group, 122.5, is this all for the pool?
The 97,000, the original contract amount, that we had at 97,292 was almost strictly for the pool. And what we've done is we've added, that work over at the soccer complex. Now, part of the bathrooms were originally in there, but it wasn't the low flow toilets. So we had the original contract amount with the 10% contingency at 97,292. And what's really changed is the computer-controlled toilets over at the soccer complex. And then a few minor things, you can see the soffit, but that's at the soccer complex and the pool, and the gutters. And that wasn't in the original scope, but some of those were damaged from the hurricane, and they're just old and need to be replaced. If you went over there and took a look at them, and even the counter over there there's sections of it broken off at the soccer complex.
But it says, your paragraph says we'll increase the total project cost to 108,754.
Right.
Oh, that's the budgeted amount.
Yeah, and the budgeted funds is what we have is the 122,500.
So it goes from 97,292 to 108,754.
Correct.
Huh.
So we're still under budget.
If I'd have read that 3 or 4 times, I would have understood that. Okay, thank you.
And hopefully we'll have, this week, that'll get resolved one way or another. They're gonna say, here's your permit, or they're gonna say you need to spend 20% of your funds, and then we'll reallocate a few things, but.
Can't you can make those bathrooms in the main building into storage, only have one set of bathrooms over on the other side. You know?
Well, we could, we'll see where they wanna go and how much money they want us to spend.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So, thank you.
You're fine. D, contract renewal soccer complex.
And these are the 3 contracts that are renewed on a yearly basis for the Sherman Gateway Flag Football, Gateway Soccer Association, and Elite Soccer. And had those gentlemen in here 2 weeks ago, and we sat down for about 2 hours and talked all things soccer and flag football, and how things are running, how we can make improvements to them. The only heartburn they've had is that they really have a tough time with paying for those lights, according to them. Them trying to get people off the field at 9 o'clock, and it takes them 15 or 20 minutes, and they said, could we have a half an hour grace period? And I was like, well, why don't you just get the people off the field sooner? They don't listen to us. But,
Yeah, it's not that easy. I mean, even
Oh,
if you shut the lights off,
right.
there's still a trickling, and I think it's a safety
yeah,
concern.
sure.
I mean, I think we put in a 30-minute buffer at the end. I mean, it's not going to break
Okay.
us to have 30 minutes. But I do think, and I've said it a couple times, and I was in favor of the league's paying for the lights, and I still am. But we came up with a number that no one on staff can justify. When Tish brought that number up, here's what we wanted to raise the increase to, I pushed him on where to get that number from, and he said, well, it's something April had done, or whatever.
Mike or April.
There was no justification. And if you look at the amount that we're charging for the lights, I think it is excessive. And I would really like for staff to go back and look at it and make sure it is fair and equitable. I got no problem with leagues paying for the lights, but for us just to throw a number out there that's not tied to anything specific, I think is
I thought it was tied to the billing.
That's what
I thought
They
she.
looked
I
at
thought
some of the
she-
power bills, but
Yeah.
how good of an analysis it was, I don't know.
Well, let's just make sure that's
Pull it
what
out.
it is,
Yeah,
and then I'm
That is
fine.
important to be able to cover the cost. It's not supposed to be a profit making.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
plus some administrative costs, plus some issues.
I had 3 items.
The one thing that I just would like to throw out there is, and I don't have any problem with giving a grace time on the lighting, but if you say we'll leave them on for 30 minutes, then they're gonna be out there for 45. I mean, it's just the nature of people that are out there on the fields. They're still gonna extend it beyond the lights turning off.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100% on, I mean, they should be pushing people out, but at the same time,
Yeah, you don't want
you
them
have
out
people,
there in
people
pitch
parked
black.
all along the fences here,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, none of these gates are open, because we lock everything down.
Mhm.
So if you wanna, you're playing back here, if you wanna get out and you're parked in front, you gotta walk all the way through, it's just, I mean.
What if we shut half the lights down? Is there a way for us to,
Well, the
Slowly
difficult,
shut
where's
them
the,
down?
where the issue is not on the field, it's in the parking lot.
oh,
So, I mean, it gets dark out there when you try, but when it gets black, it's black everywhere. So if we had,
Okay.
if we had
You turn them
more,
on and off and on and off,
Yeah,
like you do
flag
at the
it.
shuttle
Yeah.
day.
here's a flashlight. But if there was a way maybe to increase the lighting in the parking lot, or at least have, you know, some type of lighting that at least gives you something, because you don't want kids running around
Right.
out there.
I
mean, hell,
agree.
a lot of times there's covers that aren't on the irrigation, and, you know, that opens up more liability.
I-
So,
And we are working right now with putting in another fuse in there and a separate switch, because the lights for the snack bar area are tied into one set of the field lights, so you can't do them separately.
Yeah,
So
that's
we
the
are-
problem.
We are making a change on the
Yeah.
electrical box so that you can have those lights on around the bathrooms and the snack bar without having the field lights on.
if you just shut the field lights off and you have the lights on in the parking lot, it would illuminate enough to get people to their cars, get the point across, it's
Yeah.
time to go.
yeah.
And the only other question they had is they wanted us to buy, like 16 more benches, which are several $100s a piece. And I kind of came back and said, yeah, but all your kids jump on them, drag them around and destroy them. And then at the end of the season, I have to buy a new set of benches. And they were like, well, we could put them away after the season's ended. That was another little argument we got in, because I was like, do we put aluminum benches out there? And like I said, on Saturdays when you see them, you get 20 kids jumping up and down on them, and we end up throwing them away.
You also look at how Mainscape moves those benches too.
Yeah, well,
They are
that's-
set out, it's our equipment.
Right.
If we don't, after a season's over, if we don't take the equipment and maintain it, then we're just as at fault as the leagues.
And that's
I
one of
mean,
the-
if
one of
we're
the
gonna
things we
offer
came
leagues
up-
and it's part of in our contract, I think we need to, provide the services and the equipment that's needed. And if we have to increase their fee agreement in order to cover all the things, then that's what we need to look at.
It was a good meeting, and the communications definitely opened up, and we're gonna meet on a regular basis, and we have all the signed contracts by January 3rd for this year, so.
I did hear it was a really good meeting.
I had three items. Someplace I read, and I can't find it, just thumbing through it, that one of the agreements, and I think it said the soccer, that they had exclusivity.
First
on-
right.
Huh?
First right.
First right.
Yeah,
I
2 of them
thought
have
that
that.
I thought the paragraph was repeated in another one.
It is.
Was that
It's all
changed?
three agreements.
In all three agreements,
They all-
yeah, that's what I thought I read.
Yeah, we
So that's
did-
been changed?
Well, we discussed that, and we didn't change it, and we're gonna wait and look at addending the contract, going through the year in case we have to make any other changes.
Okay, the
But
second.
they kinda laughed about it too, but the three people work very well together. The only oddball is the charter school, because their games can kind of change and fluctuate around. And one thing that happens with them is they want a field for a game, so they come in and play their game, but all of a sudden now they're using 3 fields because they're practicing or warming up, and it's like, well, wait a second, you get one field.
And we don't charge for them, right?
No, we
Based on
can't
our-
charge for
so-
them till
Then-
2020.
The next one I had is, I think it was in paragraph 7A, fees for the lighting will commence on January 1, 2019, not 2018. I think that was in there.
Is that the new
Probably
rate?
a typo. And then the last one was, we have a requirement that these guys, all three of them, have to maintain and give to us, at the beginning, a list of all non-resident users, as I read.
Yep.
I like that, but my only thing was, I did a calculation of what our costs are per family in Gateway, well, not per family, per ERU in Gateway, and it works out to be $45 and some change. I would like to see, under the rate schedule on page 15, I think that's what it is, item number 4 be changed to, this was under the title Organized Youth Team Leagues. Can we get the printing on this a little smaller? Can't see it. Where we have currently $25.
We can do that, we can make it small.
Thank you. I have to bring my glasses yet. Change the 25 to 45, and then it would be equitable for all the users and the families in Gateway.
I disagree with that. I think you gotta go back to the leagues and talk to them. And what's our,
But
I
we
think
should
we gotta
have.
look at the numbers.
We should have never had this sign before it came to the board.
But the usage charges did. We approved
This was
these.
last year. This is a new year. We haven't approved anything yet. We said we were gonna negotiate this. Next thing I know, the contract out to sign. I haven't got any input in it.
But the usage charges are like an addendum. It's what we adopted earlier. I mean,
This
it
is
isn't-
almost a
Last year.
statement of work.
This is the same usage charge, at least to the one I have is attached for 2018.
Sure, same, it is.
It's the same one. So I say, we haven't updated this usage charge. My recommendation is change to 25, nothing else, the 25 to 45, that it's comparable with what every Gateway family is paying.
Sure, and we discussed that too, especially because they've been a bit remiss about the resident, non-resident. And I've given them a little bit of time because at the very beginning of the season, when they're registering people, and they do go through and check the addresses. And with elite soccer, who really doesn't start their league until May, you know, you can't really say, oh, give us your roster in January. And we are also talked about amending their contract so it really runs according to their soccer year.
This implies that when they start, or at least the way I read it, that when they start, they will provide us with an identity of non-resident players.
Right, yeah, once they do their
Not
registration.
individuals, but families.
Right.
We aren't saying if, you know, one family's got 5 and one's got 1, or one's got 7, whatever. We're saying 1 is 1. And that's what I'm saying. Just round it off at 1 and $45, whether you have 1 kid or 5 kids.
Yeah, and it may be a little late to implement that this
Yeah.
year, we certainly could for next, but one thing I also brought up to them is, I said, you know, the board's also looking at putting these fields out to bid, and you would have thought 3 people fell out of their chair.
Put it out for bid, for usage.
And to whoever wants to be the higher bidder to use the fields, and they said, well, all that would do would be to push the rates up. And I said, well, that depends what the person wants to pay for the field and then charge the kid. So, but they didn't care for that too much, but I said, you know, we're trying to maximize the revenue if we can, and we're trying to keep the fields in the shape that you'd like them in.
Well, I was of the understanding we were gonna have this and then get this to them, and would it be inclusive of a new rate schedule with that addition that I made?
Yeah, and I'll take responsibility for that because their contracts were up in December, and we were just trying to get them renewed before they weren't.
And I didn't think we were gonna redo the rates we were charging, because we adopted that in January of 2018.
It's a new year. It's a new year.
But
It's a new contract. That's why I wanted to discuss this in December.
the rates are for anybody using them anywhere. I mean, this rate,
I'm not worried about anybody, I'm worried about non-resident users.
And
That's
I
the only
un-
thing I've got.
I
That's the one that I
understand.
hear from the general public.
but we don't, and at any rate, I don't think, if we're gonna change, if we're gonna revise the rates for the fields, the charges, the usage charges, this is separate from the contracts, and it always has been. It's what we charge.
It's
what-
attached to my contract.
It's,
Can we move on?
I mean, it's just, and I can't see changing it at the last second.
And if you like, when those rosters come in, I'll bring them to you with all those detailed numbers and what the fiscal impact would be to make that change.
Not everybody agrees with you, it doesn't mean you have to pout.
We should have talked about it.
And
I
we
don't
could
disagree with
also,
that, but-
Mr. Banks, doesn't the soccer start in January and then run to?
January, February?
And then when does it stop, and then they start the new season? New registration?
I don't know exactly.
Well, that could be something, Mr. Tinkle, we could look at implementing it and amending the contract for their second part of the season.
But we'd also need to go through the public hearing process to change the rates, fees, and charges
Correct.
with a 10-day notice.
Yeah, don't talk
Yes.
about amending the contract unless you've got a board majority that wants that.
And
I'm
just,
not
and
sure
we need,
you
I
do.
think even justification too.
Yeah, the statute outlines the criteria for rates, fees, and charges.
I mean, this is in here really mostly for informational purposes. It's, so we know what we're agreeing to, but it isn't, this is separate from contracts. So, do we need to approve all 3 of these contracts then for signature?
Yes, proven with the board signing them, and I will bring the rosters back as soon as I have them, so at least you have that information and know what the resident, non-resident count is.
Make a motion to approve the 3 contracts for renewal.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So Mr. Tinkle is opposed, so passes 3-1. E, audit engagement.
Okay, so item agenda E and F kind of go together. E is the base audit. We bring in this back for, there were some legal changes that had to be done, as well as we wanted to cover the full 3 years that was in the RP. So they made those adjustments to it. Now, one page that was not in the package that I think is relevant to this when we talk about the next item. When we went back to all of the firms, we asked them a series of questions to make sure we understood what the scope was.
That's a single line of business?
Correct. Berger came back and said 4 of the 5 items that we were talking about, and I pulled up their letter on here so everyone can kind of see what, this is a page that was not included, was already included in their price. There was only one item that they said was not included in their price, and that's the assessment review. And that's why you have an additional agenda item to cover that one. The rest of these items, connection fees, PowerPoint presentation, coming to the meeting, the single audit, is already included in what I'm calling your base contract, the base engagement letter, which is agenda E, agenda item E. And then the only reason for agenda item F is to include the assessment review, which is an additional fee. And all of this kind of matches up with the RFP process and what was accepted, obviously, by the audit committee first and then by the board.
And Madam Chairman, the revised audit engagement letter also changes the language about statute of limitations and limitation on recovery for damages too,
Yeah.
which addressed two of my concerns.
Okay.
They're acceptable.
So basically, we just need a motion to approve, and I think these, we can have Chris sign these.
They modified it.
Is that right? Yes. So have a motion, we'll take them separate. Have a motion to approve and have Chris Shoemaker sign as authorized signature of the audit engagement letter.
For 3 years, right?
Yes.
Correct?
For 3 years.
For 3 years. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, with motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And the second one is also to have Chris Shoemaker, the authorized signature for the audit engagement letter for assessment methodology reports.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one passes.
Mark, Mike might indicate that I asked Tony, we had an issue of a limitation of liability, and
And
Tony.
that's been removed. They had a
Tony
limitation of
indicated that's been
liability
changed.
to the amount of the contract, and that's been removed. They also had a separate statute of limitations to be claimed. That's been changed to the statutory statute of limitations. So I'm comfortable with
Yeah, I
that.
want to make sure that that
Oh, yes.
is.
One first thing I look for.
So supervisor comments, Mr. Tinkle.
Ellie,
What?
we didn't discuss it all.
Mr. Banks?
A couple things. One, since we did not meet after the tree lighting ceremony,
Yes.
I wanted to make sure that they acknowledge Chris and staff. If you didn't attend, it was by far the best event we've ever had. Normally I walk away from these events just because I'm very critical of this type of stuff, with a list of things that we could have done better, and literally I told Chris I couldn't think of one thing that wasn't addressed. I mean, it was quality from top to bottom. The fact that we had fireworks, I mean, people were just impressed, and there were people in
My dog
various
wasn't.
communities said, where were the fireworks coming from? And it was the tree line. He goes, oh,
Was that town?
I didn't know.
And the one truck falsely identified it had French fries and they didn't. And there was a big picture of them, so I was really ready for that hamburger and French fries.
I fell down on
No
that one,
French
sorry.
fries.
And I think what's most impressive is not just the quality of the event, but the fact that it was managed under a great budget. Like Chris and staff really got donations, and I mean it was fantastic. And I think what it does show is we can hold and execute really good events. And in the future, I would love to do something, a festival in the Christmas time frame, and then something maybe middle of the year. July 4th would be great, seeing how you got the fireworks or something, some kind of festival during the summer. But great job. It was absolutely fantastic. And the fact was Santa Claus was there, not just at the end. So I mean, just the whole planning process was fantastic. The other thing is since Diane, we don't know how long she's going to be on. I think we need to assess what kind of impact that has on staff, and if there is a need to bring a temp in for a short amount of time, because we don't want to get behind this time of year. That's something to consider. And to address Ed's point around contracts and the $45 amount, I don't argue that amount should be looked at, and these contracts should be, kind of vetted prior to. Now today, I just don't think it was, the right move to go into it because we're already at that final piece. But I do agree with Ed that we need to be looking at these contracts. If we think that $45 is the difference, and I don't know if that's accurate or not, residents versus non-residents, we probably need a little bit more time to look at some of these contracts moving forward. I know we do have a certain time, but I wasn't irritated with Ed him bringing that up. I just think it was the timing and the fact that we needed to move forward on it was my issue. Other than that, I'm good.
And I was gonna just comment too, I had a number of people, and it almost surprised me. One lady came up and she says, this is the best event I've ever been to at Gateway. And she said, matter of fact, I take my kids to 4 or 5 Christmas events, and she goes, this is the best Christmas event in the area. And it surprised me. It came off very, very well, and also got a lot of support from the community and donations. Tony's firm donated, Tetra Tech donated, and offset those additional costs of the fireworks. And we also had a professional sound system and a professional stage there. So the parents that came to see their kids perform and sing and dance, they had a nice floor, they could hear it very well, and the seating out there. So it was a very nice event.
It was awesome.
Mr. Guy?
I'd like to suggest that we ask management to send a get well card to Diane from the whole board.
Yeah.
I was gonna put together, after talking to her today, I was gonna put together a care package for her with some reading material and maybe some dark chocolate. Some stuff that she might enjoy.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh,
And also, as we do these events, I think we missed an opportunity to include Pelican a little bit more because I think, it's a great event, whether you have kids or not. So I think we missed an opportunity.
It's wonderful to see the kids. When I went to the soccer things earlier, and to see the kids, it just brings back all kinds of memories.
It's fun. And that brings to me, and I have nothing, so I'm gonna say this meeting is officially adjourned.
6:14.